Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am your teacher Bilal Kurd, and in today's lesson inshallah we'll be solving the paper of March 2023, paper 2, since you people have your paper 2 on 4th May, and we are going to solve question number 1. In this particular video I'm going to focus on these questions only, and in another video inshallah I'll be solving the essay questions as well. My advice to you people would always be to first go through the questions so that you know what information will be particularly useful to you and how to extract it. I always advise my students that reading is something that needs to be very constructive. Because if, let's say, for example, you just go to the case and start reading it, then you come at, let's say, for example, part B and then you read it again, and then you come at part C and then you read it again, and then you come at part D and then you read it again. You don't have that much time in paper 2. So I would suggest that you go through the questions first, make points of the questions that you can see, knowledge points, so that when you're reading the case, you only have to apply those points in a certain context. And therefore, you'll just need to read the case once and you'll be able to solve answers. So we have a question that is a 1 marks that does not require us to go through the case. Likewise, in the next question as well, it's not necessary to go through the case. Then we have a calculation question that is of 3 marks, and then we have one advantage to FF of introducing time-based payment. Now I would suggest that you, with a pencil on your question paper, you can write whatever advantages you can think of with a pencil, so that once you're reading the case, you can apply which benefit do you think is most suitable given the context or given the scenario of the business that has been given to you. So without further ado, let's continue with the reading. Alright, so FF is a private limited company. It is very important to identify the business size and the business type, because it can help you develop better answers. Had it been a sole trader, then obviously you will have problems of finance, so revenue will be very important, reaching break-even will be very important. And if it's a company, so you have shareholders, you need to give dividends, therefore profitability is important, and government needs to be paid with taxes, and you will be more accountable to your stakeholders. So it's always a good step to identify the business model given in the data response. So FF is a private limited company that provides packaged fruit, this is our product, to the industrial market. Now industrial market means that its final customers would actually be different businesses. So FF may be selling to supermarkets, which may then attach their own logo onto the packaged fruit and then sell it. So your consumers are not the final consumers or individuals like us. Your consumers right now are basically different businesses. So the marketing mix is likely to be very different as opposed to you being in a consumer market that is B2C. Let's move on. The farm grows a variety of different fruits, which means there's a product portfolio including apples, bananas and strawberries. The production process is labor intensive, which obviously makes sense because farming pretty much, and that's labor intensive. FF employs 80 fruit pickers and uses piece rates as the method of payment. So you're now shifting from piece rates to time-based management structures, because that is something that has been asked in the question as well. So you're given the details of this particular product portfolio, apples, bananas and strawberries, and you're given the rate as well. Then moving on, you're given some information. I've cut out some extra information right now because it was not of complete relevance to us, and they will be relevant to us for the later parts. Likewise, this particular information is relevant to part C. So when you're solving this data response in the CIE as well, and you're faced with the paper 2, try to make notes like these. Like, okay, fine, this information is relevant to part C. So even if you were to read again, you'll be doing subjective reading and not going through the entire case. And this tip will be particularly useful in A2 level as well, because you will be given a huge case with a wealth of information. So it would always be good to perhaps identify and classify information according to the question types that have been given to you. The employees would like to introduce time-based payment at a rate of 4.5 per hour to replace the piece rate payment. All right. So let's move on to the questions. Identify one content theory of motivation. So as you would know that there are two theories, namely content and process. And process theory is likely to include the theory of Victor Vroom. So content theories, in this question, you can mention Taylor's economic man. You can mention Herzberg's two-factor theory. You can mention Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can mention Elton Mayer's Hawthorne effect, and just mention it. Do not explain it, because the question asks you to state only. You just need to identify. Do not waste time. All right. Next part, explain the term supply chain management, and it is of 3 marks. So here, as you can see, I have written down a definition, and we are going to extract some key terms. Involves managing the flow of goods and services and includes a different process that transform raw materials into finished products. So this will be a key term that the examiner will be looking for in the answer. This would also involve steps taken by a business to speed up production process, establish strong communication with supplying businesses, and minimize wastage at all costs. Now, what you need to do is, it's up to you. You can think of an example from the case. Like in the case that has been given to you, what do you think supply chain management would mean in actual? Like from the very process of getting fertilizers and seeds and pesticides to the very process of, cultivating those fruit products and then eventually harvesting the fruits, that would, all the stages involved, that would be supply chain management. So you have used an example from the case. Also, it may be possible for you to give a general example as well, only in this part particularly. Nowhere in paper 2 you are advised to give general examples, but in this part, yes, you may choose to give a general example, but make sure that you write a clear definition as well. Alright, so this is basically the definition of supply chain management, and you would need to relate it with an example. So let's go towards part B, part 1. So part B, part 1 says, an employee works for 8 hours and picks 5 boxes of apples, 2 boxes of bananas, and 4 trays of strawberries. Refer to table 1.1 and other information. Calculate the difference between the employee's pay using piece rates and time-based payment. So in this scenario, calculating time-based payment would relatively be very easy. And why is that? Because you are clearly given a per hour rate, and you're also given the number of hours. So in order to calculate time-based payment, you are just going to multiply these two. What are you getting per hour? Multiplied by how many hours you're working. But if you talk about piece rates, what you're going to do is, you can clearly see that in this table, you're given the per unit rate for different types of fruits that you are harvesting. So for apples, an employee is being paid $2, and the employee collects 5 boxes of apples, and likewise 2 boxes of bananas multiplied by the rate that is given to you, and 4 trays of strawberries multiplied with the rate that is given to you, and all of these rates are per unit. So your calculation would somehow be like this. First, if we talk about time rate, you have the per hour rate multiplied by the number of workers. So that is giving you a total payment of $36. And when you talk about the piece rate, so you have the rate multiplied by the quantity that would result in the payment to be given. So you calculate the payments of all these fruits individually, and then you add them to get the total, that is 25. So according to the piece rate management system, workers are earning 25 right now, whereas according to the time rate system, workers are earning $36. And since the question asks us to calculate the difference, we simply do the subtraction and get the difference. So you can clearly see that the workers are being benefited under time rate because they're able to earn more. Now for the 3-mark questions, there would be another tip that I would want to give you. For the 3-mark questions, try to write this particular question in the following steps. Mention the formula if there's any, then show your working, and then write your answer and make sure that your answer has the particular unit that needs to be written alongside. So for example, if you're calculating market share, you need to show a percentage, because you can be penalized and you can lose 1 mark just because you did not mention the unit. And let's say, for example, the question asks you to calculate the break even. So even if you do not know how to calculate break even and you just know the formula, so mentioning the formula will help you to gain 1 mark. And that goes for working as well. Most students, they write the right formula, they do the right working, but somehow they are unable to process the right answer. Even in that case, you're going to get 2 marks. And so what if I just give the answer, the exact answer, and do not mention the formula and do not mention the working, but the answer has that particular unit of measurement and is completely correct? What then? Then you are going to get 3 marks. But I do not advise this because it's a risky move. So please try to show your workings and write the formula as well. Alright, so in part 2, the question asks us explain one advantage to FF. It's very important for every question to know the focus of analysis. Where do you need to draw the chain of analysis? What source? Where do you need your impacts to end? So the question asks you explain one advantage to FF of introducing time-based payment. So if a candidate writes that, okay, fine, time-based payments would help the workers to earn more money, and that can also be seen in part 1, they are earning more money, and that would make them more motivated because their standards of living would improve and they can buy better things or XYZ, and then the answer stops here. I'm sorry, you did not mention as to how motivating workers will be a benefit to FF. So be very, very careful regarding the focus of analysis. Where do you need to show your impact on? So for example, if I were to show you a sample response, this is the marking criteria. Application stands here for 2 marks, in which 1 mark may be you talking in context and then explaining the impact on FF as well. So for example, I write the benefit that is likely to make workers more motivated as they will be able to earn more money and improve their standards of living. So I've mentioned the benefit and have also given an explanation. Try not to confuse analysis with explanation. Explanations and analysis are 2 different things. Analysis is a lot about consequences or the impacts. And now I will develop this as to how this particular benefit will be a benefit or an advantage to FF ultimately. So I have continued my reasoning that if workers feel motivated, they will be more willing to accept changes to sustainable production methods. If you were to read the entire case, you will know, wait a minute, let me show you. You can clearly see that the food industry has recently been criticized for a lack of sustainability. In response, FF directors plan to move from single-use plastic packaging to using recycled materials. And this would make packaging production more capital intensive as well. So you can clearly see that there are changes being introduced, and if employees are demotivated, they are going to resist any possible change because they will not trust the management. They do not feel happy. So if they are motivated, yes, they'll be able to transition from their existing production processes to the new production process, such as capital intensive processes, and acquire any relevant training if they are needed to be trained in certain ways. which can help FF. Now I'm moving towards the advantage to FF, my focus of analysis, which can help FF, thereby helping FF to harvest fruit produce quickly and satisfy demand of businesses at a larger scale. Workers could also work overtime in cases of more harvest than usual, helping FF to cater to more customers. So I have clearly mentioned the benefit of introducing time-based payments onto the business. So even if you start off your answer with the impact on workers, you need to link it as to how it would impact businesses. So this is pretty much how you are going to solve part A and part B. And in the next lesson, inshallah, I will be covering part C and part D. Thank you. Happy learning.